योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हरिः ओम्। So we are looking at Sutra 2.50. बाह्याभ्यन्तरस्तम्भवृत्तिर्देशकालसङ्ख्याभिः परिदृष्टो दीर्घसूक्ष्मः. So as we saw last time, there is a list of things: Bhaya Abhyantara Stambhavrittayah and Deshakala Sankhya. Abhi, by all these, Paridrishtaha, Dirgha Sukshmaha, Pranayamaha. So examined from these aspects or analyzed from this perspective or brought into effect from these various angles, that is pranayam, and which is dirgha sukshma, so these words are describing pranayam, and we have seen that in the previous session. Also we looked at what is meant by bahya vritti, abhyantara vritti and stambha vritti. So these three as factors by which the pranayam is considered, described, characterized is something we already saw by looking at the bhashya as well. So now we continue from where we left off in the bhashya, where Vyasa begins with the kala, the desha and then the kala. So he says, Trayopyete deshena paridrishtaha. So all these three, which three? The bahya vritti, abhyantara vritti and the stambha vritti. If you recollect, bahya vritti referred to letting the air out, so to speak. Of course, now when we say air, there is a specific act of letting the air out. The air is also kosthasya vayuhu, etc. But letting it out is bahya vritti. Drawing it in is abhyantara vritti. And stambha vritti is also something that we saw, ubhaya bhavaha, where there is neither the drawing in nor the letting out, which we sort of casually refer to as retention. All these three vrittis we have seen, and all these three are deshena paridrishtaha, means they are all characterized by or parikshitaha or examined or analyzed by desha. Desha meaning region, this area, this region. So deshena paridrishtaha yanasya vishayo desha iti, he says. So yan means so much, this extent. This extent is the desha for this particular act. In this manner it is examined or characterized. So this may refer to this, depending on whether it is bahya, abhyantara, etc. It may be about inhaling in this region of so much extent, exhaling in this region of so much extent, or retaining with respect to this region with so much extent. So yanasya vishayo desha iti. And we'll continue looking at the bhashya and then we'll refer to some other texts as well. So this is what Vyasa says about desha in the sense of region. And we have seen and heard this in classes as well about pranayama with respect to, say, the chest region, abdomen region, pelvic region, and there are so many regions with different extents. Therefore, it is a yan. Yan is refers to the range. So much. So much is the extent of the region in question with respect to the particular vritti, whether bahya or abhyantara or stambha. So that is what Vyasa briefly touches upon Desha. Then he talks about Kala. He says, Kalena paridrishtaha. So also examined with respect to Kala. Kala refers to time and duration. So, Kshananam Yatta, Vyasa himself is explaining that. He says, Kshananam Yatta Avadharanena Avachinna Ityartha. So the Avadharanam, or the duration, the bringing about by Kshananam Iyatta. So many moments, so many durations, so far, so long. Avachinnaha, characterized by that, is what is Kalena Paridrishtaha, says Vyasa. So essentially, he is explaining by saying an act of pranayama is characterized by the region in question, the duration in question, etc. And then Sankhya. Sankhyabihi paridrishtaha. Now what is that? Vyasa says, Etavadbihi Shwasa Prashwasaihi Pratama Udghataha Tadvat Nigrihitasya Etavadbihi Dvitiya Udghataha Evam Tritiyaha. So he is illustrating by example. He says, okay, the first Udghata we can consider it as sort of the first round, so to speak. So the first set or first round is made up of so many Shwasa Prashwasas. The second is made up of so many Prashwasa Prashwasas. The third is made up of so many Shwasa Prashwasas. So essentially, there is an aspect of counting. Udghata sometimes is also explained as the apana meeting the prana, and that is a Udghata, because it is a sort of a hitting, and that is a literal meaning of the word as well. Whichever way we take it, it refers to doing it so many times in the first round, doing it so many times in the second round, and so on. So that is the aspect of Sankhya. So there is a Desha Kala Sankhya, which is an important characteristic if we were to characterize a certain pranayamic act. So it is made up of letting out, drawing in, neither letting out nor drawing in, that is Stamba. Then the region in question, the duration in question, the counts involved. So there are so many possible permutations, combinations, and be advertence to that, and each specific combination as yatha vidhi, as either instructed by the guru or as given in the text, etc., characterize the different pranayamas. Then evam mrudu, says Vyasa, evam mruduhu, evam madhya, evam tivra iti sankhya paridrishtaha. So this sankhya, the count, says if so many, that is for mrudu, sort of the soft. Then so many for the medium, and so many for the tivra, so many for the more sharper or the more intense or more advanced. This is how, says Vyasa, it is characterized by Sankhya. For example, it is said, like in Linga Puranam, for example, it is said, Pranayamasya manam tu matra dvadashakam smritam nicho dvadasha matrastu sukrut udghata iritaha madhyamascha virudghata chaturvimshati matrakaha mukhyastu yas trirudghata shatrimshat matra uchyate. So here it is saying, if it is a pranayamasya manam, if you were to, the level of pranayam, so to speak, is dvadasha matras. Now, the lowest is dvadasha matraha, and it uses the same word udghataha, sakrut udghata. Sakrut means that one, with the udghata it is done. The medium contains two udghatas, so two rounds, and therefore containing chaturvimshati matras. And then the mukhya, the main, or the which is not low, which is what is to be aimed for, that contains three udghatas, so the 3 rounds, which therefore makes 36 matras. So that is an example of how the sankhya is also used to define the level the manam in terms of mrudu, madhya and tivra. Sa khalu ayam. Okay, by referring to these texts, we also see that there is a certain unity among texts, which Patanjali is mentioning briefly in the sutra. Vyasa is elaborating, and there is further elaboration in other texts. Then Vyasa says, he quotes the final sentence. He says, "Sa khalu ayam evam abhyastah dirgha sukshmaha." And this, he says emphatically, this therefore, in this manner, being studied, being practiced, so abhyasa, by inculcating the abhyasa of these, then it is dirgha sukshmaha. Dirgha sukshmaha means it is dirgha in terms of time, kala vyapi dirgha. It is elongated in time, can also considered to be elongated in region, in extent, in its effect. Sukshmaha. How sukshma in which extent? In which sense? Sukshma in terms of being subtle in its effects, in its action, and sukshma in the vayu sancharaha. So the vayu in question is, as it gets more and more refined, it gets more and more subtle. And therefore the pranayama here, once characterized by bhaya abhyantarastam vritti deshakala sankhya paridrishtah, then this pranayama becomes or is considered dirgha sukshmaha. So with this, Vyasa closes his commentary.
So Vyasa explains each component of the definition here. Bhahyabhyantar stambha, three kinds of pranayamas. And then Desha Kala Sankhya Bhi Paridrushtaha, examined by Desha Kala Sankhya. And then Dirgha Sukshmaha. So these are the components in definition which you must understand clearly. So he refers to Desha. First one is Desha, examined by Desha. Desha should be understood in the light of Yoga Shastra, where we come to know that this is pranayam. Now, being pranayam, it is spoken of as 5 pranas or 5 vayus, pancha pranas or pancha vayus. Now, although the prana or vayu is identical in the whole embodiment, like the case of ocean. Ocean on the planet is one and the same ocean. It is only one ocean that is on the planet. But for our convenience, we have demarcated and we describe them by different nomenclatures. Between Europe and Africa and on one side and America on the other side, it is Atlantic. Other side of America and the East Asia, it is Pacific. And then in the southern hemisphere below India and Southeast Asia, it is Indian Ocean. So the ocean is one. Not that there are 3 oceans, but the ocean is one. Similarly, the prana and vayu is only one. But because it conducts our embodiment, the science has demarcated, given the names to the panchavayus and panchapranas. So pran, apan, saman, udan, vyan are the 5 pranas. And they are also therefore panchavayus, pran, apan, saman, vyan, udan. Now they are mentioned to be in a particular location. So the apana is below the navel part. It is the region of apana. And between navel and heart, it is samana. And the heart region up to the throat region, it is prana. And then throat and above is called udana. So these are the regions specified in science of yoga that the vayus are divided only for namesake and for their function, because their functions are totally different. What the prana does and vayu does below the navel is one thing, above the navel is another thing, and in the heart and above throat it is another thing. So in science, you will come across the names of Pancha Pranas and Pancha Vayus. So we saw the Pranas, Pran, Apan, Saman, Udan. Now about Vyana, Vyana is said to be all pervasive. So precisely there are 4 Prana Kriyas or 4 Vayu Kriyas. Prana Vyana Kriya, Apana Vyana Kriya, Samana Vyana Kriya, Udana Vyana Kriya. Udana is said to be a common factor, and therefore there are 4 regions mentioned in the science for pranas and vayu, and that is why the mention of desha. So one is navel and below desha, region navel and below, that would be apana, precisely apana vyana. Then navel to heart, it would be samana, so it would be samana vyana, and then heart to throat, it would be prana, precisely prana vyana, and above the throat for the head and cerebral region, it would be udana, that means udana vyana. And that is why the mention of desha. In subject of yoga, these are the deshas. And anatomically, we speak about pelvic breathing, navel breathing, abdominal breathing, diaphragm and chest. And so those are regions of the body according to anatomy. But here, in the science of yoga, reference is to these deshas. Apana desha, then samana desha, and then prana desha and udana desha. So that's why the word desha paridrushtaha. So in pranayam, the breath is examined or is regulated region-wise. So it will be either apanayam, or it will be udanayam, or it will be samanayam or pranayam. So in parlance of yoga, these are the concepts of desha. Then about kala. The kala is the duration of breath. If you modify the volume of breath, it will work on time scale. Or if you modify the velocity of the breath, it will again work on time scale. So traditionally, it is described how to identify the velocity of the breath. And there is also the aspect of desha here. If a cotton fabric is held at the nostrils, that it will sway with in-breath and out-breath. The cotton fabric will sway with in-breath and out-breath. If the breath is sharper, it will oscillate in a longer range. If the breath is soft, it will be in a short range. So that will tell you about velocity and the velocity of the breath as well. So that will tell you about desha, in how much region the cotton fabric is swaying. If it is swaying in a small region, that means the breath is soft and tender. And if it is swaying in a larger region, then the breath is said to be sharp. And that will tell you about the duration of the breath. Given amount of breath taken sharper will take shorter time. Given amount of breath done slowly, thinner, it will take longer time. So the kala aspect is also described in the science of yoga that way. And then, of course, sankhya. This is very important thing to understand. Pranayama is not made up of one cycle. Regulating one cycle doesn't become pranayama, even if other aspects are taken care of. Desha paridushtata and kala paridushtata are taken care of. But if it is just one cycle, it is not regulation. There must be multiple cycles. Therefore, there is a concept of sankhya. And you just now heard that even calibration of pranayama is described by the 12 cycles as Mrudu, 24 cycles, a round of 24 cycles is Madhyam, and round of 36 cycles is Adhimatra or Tivra. So Mrudu Madhya Tivra calibrations are based on the number of cycles. So number of cycles has great importance in pranayama, for which we must train ourselves to be breathing in a replicated manner for number of cycles. And we need to reach the minimum level of 12 cycles to qualify to be called as mild practitioners. If we are just doing 3, 4, 5, 6 cycles regulated, then we are not in reckoning as far as the evaluation is concerned for calibration. So the science mentions about a round of 12 cycles, round of 24 cycles, round of 36 cycles. And then when you are practicing that over a regular period of time, you become proficient and then you can go for more number of cycles. It is not that it should not exceed 36 cycles. It will exceed. And that's why it becomes Dirgha and Sukshma. So if you are well versed in pranayama, then perhaps you might do a round of 50 cycles or 100 cycles. So that will show you your caliber. If you are able to do fewer cycles, then you are lower in caliber. So it is important to also practice replication of cycles over multiple cycles of breath in a round. And that is the Sankhya aspect. So just one breath, usually we say a deep breath, take a deep inhalation or deep exhalation, and we think that is pranayama. Although it is regulated in all various aspects, other aspects, it won't be getting classed as pranayama unless there are replications of cycles. So we come to understand certain implications and nuances by sutra and also by Vyasa's description. Desha Kala Sankhyabi Paridrushtaha Dirgha Sukshmaha. Dirgha is not a reference to deep in-breath or deep out-breath, but pranayam going for a long time. And Sukshmaha means the pranayam is sometimes so subtle that we have heard that sometimes the yogis' electrical beats also stop. And still the person is living, the yogi is living. So it becomes so subtle that it cannot be caught clinically that a person is breathing. Otherwise we check if a person is living or not living. We try to feel the breath, whether the person is breathing or not breathing, by taking the finger near the nose. But here the breath will be so subtle that it cannot be felt, and it is so subtle that sometimes electrical beats to the heart are also stopped. And that is the subtleness of breathing. And this is to be understood in light of in the light of samadhi. The samadhi extends for over a long period of time. Samadhi is never of a second or two. So in that case, samadhi is a pranayama. In state of samadhi, there is a kind of pranayama where the breath is also regulated, replicated, and not spasmodic and sporadic. So then the pranayama goes over for a long time. And in the Shastras, it's also described that pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, samadhi are gauged on the duration and number of cycles. So the Puranas and the Yoga Shastra have said that a pranayama, when it continues, replication is for minimum 12 cycles, then it is pranayama. And we just now saw that Mrudu pranayama is 12 cycles. Now when the state of pratyahara, which we will be seeing in the following sutra, if that characteristic of pratyahara is persisting not for a second or two or minute or two, but time taken by 12 into 12 pranayamas, then it is pratyahara. And then 12 into 12 into 12, if the definition of dhyana has manifested, it must stay for that duration. Then only it is dharana. And then another multiplication of 12 for dhyana, another multiplication of 12 for samadhi. So it's simple like this, because if we are a good person, you can't be good for a moment, and nobody will say that you are a good person. There must be persistence and consistency for you to be called as a good person or a bad person or intelligent person or stupid person. So it's over a period of time we are like that, and then therefore we are declared to be or held to be good or bad, virtuous or vicious, or intelligent or unintelligent. And similarly, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, it is not just by definition that the characteristics have appeared. The characteristics must persist for a specific duration, specified duration of time. And Shastra mentions that it is all multiplication of 12. So this duration is so important. In that duration, there will be those number of cycles, as you know. So if 12 cycles are taken 12 minutes, Pratyahar must be there for another 12 into 12. Dharana should be there for 12 into 12 into 12. So we will be seeing the definitions later. And those definitions must be persisting. A good person is good if the person is good day after day, day by day, day in and day out, weeks and months and years, then we say a person is a good person. But if a person is good for a moment, we don't declare and tag the person to be a good person. There must be persistence. So also there has to be persistence. And that is why the Sankhya aspect has been brought in. So these are how pranayam is regulated, or how a pranayam is by examination pranayam. We are given certain factors. And with that examination, we can say that yes, this was a pranayam. Just a deep breath is not a pranayam. Just a deep in-breath is not a pranayam. Just a deep out-breath is not a pranayam. And that's why Patanjali has clearly mentioned all these aspects which are to be considered in ayama of prana, in regulation of prana. Okay.
Yes. So just to give some more examples and context to get familiar with this, to look at what some of the texts are also saying. One of the Upanishads says, Purakam dvadasham kuryat, kumbhakam shodasham bhavet. So there are different characterizings. So here it is the Sankhya that is being talked about. Also, the Sankhya, you will see in this example, they are not the same. So the Purakam it says 12, Kumbhakam 16, Rechakam Dashachomkaraha Pranayamasya Uchyate. So in this case, there is a certain proportion given for Puraka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka. And Adame Dvadasha Matra, Madhyame Dvigunamata, this is the same as we saw in the Linga Puranam, where the lowest rung is 12 matras, Madhyame, the medium is twice that, Uttame, thrice that, Triguna Prokta, Pranayamasya Nirnayaha. So we see elsewhere also similar discussions or similar mantras from Upanishads talking about, which Patanjali has very broadly described as Bhaya Abhyantara Stambha Deshakala Sankhya, which sort of captures all of the various details and technicalities that will come up. So let's see some more. When to do pranayam, right? So one again, there's a different Upanishad where it is said. So this is from the Shandilya Upanishad. It says, Pratar Madhyan Dine Sayam Ardharatre tu Kumbhakan Shanair Ashiti Paryantam Chaturvaram Samabhyaset. So look at the importance and the extent, the frequency in which pranayama is done. So Prataha, morning, Madhyan Dine, afternoon, Sayam, evening, Ardharatre, midnight, tu Kumbhakan. So like I discussed in the previous session, often in many texts, when pranayama is mentioned, they assume it is a kumbhaka. It may be puraka sahita, rechaka sahita, kevala, etc. But at some point it comes to the kumbhaka. So here it says prataha, madhyan dine, and sayam and ardharatre. So morning, afternoon, evening, night. pranayama is to be done. Shanaihi, slowly. Ashiti paryantam, up to 80 times in each. Chaturvaram samabhyaset. So 80 in each of these and 4 times. So 4 times how? Morning, afternoon, evening, midnight. And in each it's a shanaihi, gradually. Ashiti paryantam, up to 80. So this is the extent to which pranayam is prescribed and how it is also described in the text.
So point to be noted is that there is proportion, and pranayam is spoken of as samavritti and vishamavritti. And ideally, the pranayam must be done when it is a pura recha kumbhak pranayam, or called kumbhak pranayam in short. The exhalation is proportionately greater. If you see all the proportions mentioned in Shastra, different proportions for Mridul and Madhyam and Adhimatra pranayam, Tivra pranayam. The proportion is something like, say, 1:2:4. The 1 means Puraka, 2 means Kumbhaka, and 4 means Rechaka. So the allocation of Rechaka is always greater. And that is one point that we have to understand. That in pranayam, the duration of exhalation is more than inhalation, and then there are proportions. So such as 1:2:4. And that is a point to be noted. So that would be Vishamavritti pranayam. In Samavritti pranayam, it is equal time, equal duration for Purak and Kumbhak Rechak. So that's why there is mention of Samavritti, Vishamavritti pranayamas, but generally the exhalation is more voluminous and should be voluminous. The exhalation should be of a longer duration than the inhalation. We don't come across mention of the proportion where inhalation is greater than exhalation. We always, the exhalation is greater than inhalation. This is a point to be noted by every student. Okay.
Now the same Upanishad also gives a very useful line. It says, Marut abhyasanam sarvam manoyuktam samabhyaset. So any abhyasa involving Marut or Vayu or Prana, etc., it is manoyuktam. So mind is very much intertwined in it. So it is one material. The Marut and the Manas is to be made as one material when the abhyasa is done. So itaratra na kartavya manovritti manishinaha. So the manovritti should not deviate from whatever is happening with respect to the Marut or the Vayu. So it's see how, I mean, it's very interesting how these various instructions are given in the different texts and how it is described. Also, with respect to Desha, there are several references. For example, Yoga Yajnavalkya says, Nabhi Madhye cha Nasagre, Padangushte cha Yatnataha, Dharayed Manasa Pranam, Sandhya Kaleshu Sarvada. So, interestingly, this is given in more detail. So, it says, okay, in the evening time, Nabhi Madhye, what is to be done? Dharayet Manasa Pranam. There is so much in these 3 words. So, the prana is to be held, Dharayet. But how? Manasa, by involving the mind. So here, exactly the how to practice, how to go about it is mentioned. Dharayet Manasa Pranam, where Nabhi Madhye, in the navel, Nasa Agre, in the nostrils, Padangushte, the big toe. So when we say Desha, often it is confined to the chest region, abdomen region, pelvic region, sometimes the face region. But in the text, it is also things like the big toe are mentioned. Gulpham is mentioned sometimes, the ankles. So those are also considered areas where the prana dharana can happen. And here beautifully it says, Dharayet Manasa, by means of the mind. So the manas is the means through which the prana dharanam can happen in the whatever region has been prescribed over there. Also, in the text there is this notion of Shodashadharaha, which it is said any yogi practitioner must know. So there are 16 adharas or 16 regions within the body which are said to be of importance. So for example, Angushtadhara, Gudadhara, Mooladhara, Medradhara, Udyanadhara, Nabhyadhara, Hridayadhara, Jimvadhara, Kantadhara, Talvadhara, Ghantikadhara, Nasadhara. So there is so much. There is Kapatadhara, Lalatadhara, Bhrumadhyadhara, Brahmarandradhara. So there are so many prescribed regions. And then there is the Desha Kala Sankhya, different combinations. Again, some of them are specifically mentioned and prescribed. So as such, this is very well laid out, and this gives us so many factors along which very precisely, very carefully, uh, very interestingly one can sort of explore and refine and learn as we go about this. So that is what this sutra, in a very brief manner, but providing the different dimensions along which to think about the practice of pranayama, one can adopt. And when that is done in the right way, because in all the texts, it would even in Yoga Yajnavalkya, where Yajnavalkya is telling Maitreyi, his wife, to do pranayama, he will always say, vidhivat, as per the vidhi, as prescribed, it is to be done. So it is not as though one can go, I mean, one can of course explore, but there is also certain vidhis, there are some guidelines, like the one that was just mentioned, where the exhalation is longer, or it is said, Shanaihi Rechayet, always. Sometimes Puraka is said to be sharp, but the Rechaka is always said to be gentle, Shanaihi. So there are certain guidelines under which the various things that can be done, then they qualify as pranayama, and then it can be called Dirgha Sukshmaha. So with this, we sort of complete our look at the sutra at hand right now, so 2.50.
And one more thing here, that why you just now heard that pranayam to be done in different times, the mornings and noon and evening and midnight. Now, it has a purport behind mentioning these times, because the body chemistry is said to be different in these slots of the day. So the dhatus and the prana are very closely related. The three dhatus, the vata, pitta, kapha, and then the prana. So the Ayurveda tells us that there is preponderance or governance of Vayu Tattva while we are sleeping at night. So that's the time when the Vayu has prominence and Vayu increases. Vayu Tattva increases. When the sun comes up after sunrise, then it starts the Pitta time. The Pitta is getting triggered when with the sunrise, and then during the daytime. And when the sun sets, then the Kapha time comes. So Vata, Pitta, Kapha would be alternating, and they get the prominence in our embodiment and therefore in our biochemistry. So early morning you feel that there is a phlegm in your voice also you can feel, and the phlegm is also accumulated. So you know that when you get up in the morning there is phlegm. So that's the Kapha Kala. Morning is Kapha Kala. But after sunrise, it slowly heads towards Pitta Kala. And after sunset, it heads towards Vayu Kala. And the biochemistries are different, and therefore pranayama is suggested to be done to tackle the three conditions. Because we have diseases on account of, if you recall, Dhatu Rasakarana Vaishamyam Vyadihi, as Vyasa has described and defined according to Ayurveda. Dhatu, that means Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So they are differently constituted in different slots of the day, And that is why it is suggested in classical pranayama that it must be tried in all those different prepondering conditions of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So that is why that has been mentioned. Otherwise, the common man doesn't have idea. I think the day pranayama has to be done somewhere, maybe early morning or late evening, and that is enough. That is only in a formative period. But later, when you have to understand the functioning of yoga within our system, then the dhatus are to be taken into account, and these dhatus are naturally changing. And even the Panchatattvas are said to be changing. There is a cycle of 1 hour for Panchatattvas. So there is Prithvi preponderance, and then Up, Tej, Vayu, Akash preponderance, and that's a cycle mentioned in Yoga Shastra, which completes in about 1 hour. So after 1 hour, you will be back to the original Tattva. And that's why that also is a paradigm to be practicing yoga, so that we tackle various conditions biochemically through pranayama. And then there is a classification called samantrak amantraka. So with mantra or without mantra, so that it becomes pranayama. There is no third kind of pranayama apart from samantrak amantrak. We need to understand what is samantrak and what is amantrak pranayama. And samantrak pranayama also helps you the mantra as a gauge. So you can make allocations of proportions to in-breath and out-breath, or in-breath, out-breath, and in-breath retention, out-breath retention. So mantra facilitates that, as well as mantra is also a presiding deity in the Yoga Shastra, particular Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So they are presiding deities over in-breath, out-breath, and retention. So Samantrak Pranayam works that way as well. And then Amantrak Pranayam is again units that you will have to count with the Amantrak tool of Pranayam. Amantrak means Svaravarnas, and Samantrak means the mantras and Bija mantras. So it is to be noted that Pranayam is also either Samantrak or Amantrak in classical concept of it. Okay.
Okay. So now let's begin Sutra 2.51, which says Payabhyantara Vishayakshepi Chaturthaha. So the fourth, it says. Which are the three? So Bhaya Vritti, Abhyantara Vritti, and Stambha Vritti. The fourth, it says Bhaya Abhyantara Vishayakshepi. So the one which is that there's an akshepa which sort of transcends. Okay. So it is Bhyancha Abhyantarancheti Bhayabhyantare. So that is a compound word. Bhaya and Abhyantara. Te Vishayau Yayostau Bhayabhyantara Vishayau. Right? So those are the Vishayas, the thing under consideration. So those are the Rechaka Puraka Pranayam. Tau Akshipati Atikramati. So Akshepaha means Atikramanam. So it sort of transcends, goes beyond. That one, Tau Akshipati Atikramati iti Bhayabhyantara Vishayakshepi. So that is how it is described. That is the fourth. Which is to say that the Bhaya Vishaya, which has been already described and talked about, which is often referred to as Rechaka, as we saw. Abhyantara Vishaya, also we have talked about in detail, related to drawing in, referred to as Puraka. Now, the one that goes beyond those two, Atikramya Sthitaha. So that the fourth one is the Chaturthaha, is the fourth. Once again, Patanjali has not given the name. He has not used the word Rechaka. He has not used the word Puraka. He has not used the word Kumbhaka. And here also he says the fourth. Elsewhere it is referred to as Kevala Kumbhaka. And then one understands this to be a reference to that. But Patanjali just says this is the fourth. So this is the meaning of the sutra and the term. Bhaya Abhyantara Vishaya Kshepi is a single compound word which I opened out by saying Bhyancha Abhyantaram Cheta Bhaya Abhyantare. Te Vishayo Yasya So Bhaya Abhyantara Vishayo Rechaka Purakakyo etc. Now Tau Akshipati Atikramati, the one that goes beyond these two is the fourth Chaturthaha. That is what the sutra says. Next, we'll look at what Vyasa has to say about this fourth kind of pranayama.
So the reference comes to the fourth pranayama called Kevala Kumbhaka. And then it literally means that it is a retention. It is a retention. That's a Kevala Kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is retention. Now, retention will be either preceded by in-breath or out-breath, or will be followed by in-breath and out-breath. So that's a Sahita Kumbhaka is also a class mentioned in the Shastra. Sahita Kumbhaka and Kevala Kumbhaka. Now, when we do retention pranayama, there is either inhalation preceding it for internal retention, or exhalation preceding it for external retention, and it will be followed again by the in-breath or out-breath, as the case may be. So there is always a in-breath or out-breath before a kumbhaka, and there is always a in-breath or out-breath after a kumbhaka. So this is what usually happens in Sahita Kumbhaka. And now the reference here is to Kumbhaka, which is Bhayyabhyantara Vishaya Kshepi, which is transcending. That means, literally it means that there is a Kumbhaka which is not preceded by either in-breath or out-breath, or and also a Kumbhaka that is not followed by in-breath or out-breath. Now this is very difficult to conceive, that a Kumbhaka is neither preceded by one of the two kinds of breath, nor followed by one of the two kinds of breath. There must be either in-breath or out-breath before or after Kumbhaka. So this is something that we can imagine and we can understand. But the fourth Kumbhaka is quite a mysterious Kumbhaka. With the definition, it becomes clear that there is neither Bhaya Abhyantara Vritti Pranayam nor posterior to Kumbhaka Bhaya Abhyantara Vritti Pranayam. So what is it? How is it? Is it possible? So, again, it is another sutra. We had seen in some earlier part of the text that how the mysticism came in. And this is one more time here that the mysticism is being countered in the sutra that Patanjali mentions at Chaturtha Pranayam, 51st Sutra. So, we will have to make an endeavor to really understand that is it really possible that there can be a Kumbhaka? It is not involuntary Kumbhaka. Because in case of involuntary Kumbhaka also, there is either preceding in-breath or out-breath, and it is followed by in-breath or out-breath. Now, how are we going to conceive that there is a retention which is neither preceded nor followed by in-breath or out-breath? So if the more we think over it, the more our brain will spin. And the more it spins, the more it becomes agnostic sutra. And that is why we will have a very good taste of the mysticism in the Kevala Kumbhaka. Anyway, that's interesting sutra that we have embarked upon. It is nothing that there is some instruction for us in our pranayam, for our pranayam. There is no piece of instruction in this sutra at all for us. Yet, there is something that is mentioned about, and that's the Kevala Kumbhaka. And this Kumbhaka is also in mysticism to be a Kumbhaka only possible in the fourth state of consciousness called Turiya Avastha. So as students of yoga, we must be aware of these states of consciousness. Jagrata Avastha, Swapna Avastha, Sushupti Avastha, and Turiya Avastha. And mysticism says that this is a Kumbhaka which only is in Turiya Avastha. And therefore, we are not able to imagine it in a grossest state of consciousness, which is called Jagrata Avastha. We are trying to conceive it, ponder over it, and reflect over it, and try to comprehend it in our awakeful state of consciousness. Now, that is unfit to really understand. And that is why it is mysticism, which cannot be conceived, construed by analyzing Jagrata Avastha, analyzing Swapna Avastha, analyzing Sushupti Avastha. We can be analyzing these states of consciousness, which modern psychology too does. But it's a fourth state of consciousness. And therefore, that's the mysticism or mystic element in pranayama, which has now crept in. So we will have to see if it is really logical or illogical, but mysterious, definitely. That will be interesting to really try to understand what is Kevala Kumbhaka. Okay.
So we'll begin looking at Vyasa's Bhashya on this sutra in the next session. I just thought I'll talk a little bit about the term Vishaya used here. So in the previous sutra, it was said that there are three vrittis in consideration with respect to pranayama: Bahya vritti, Abhyantara vritti, Stambha vritti. And then pranayama was described as Desha Kala Sankhyabihi Paridrishtaha. Paridrishtaha, as we talked about, is Parikshitaha, or examined, analyzed, characterized. So all of that is a form of jnanam, because there is certain knowledge that is happening when something is examined, as Bahya characterized by Desha Kala Sankhya, or Abhyantara characterized by Desha Kala Sankhya, or Stambha characterized by Desha Kala Sankhya, or two of them, three of them together characterized by Desha Kala Sankhya, etc. So this is jnanam. Now, as the paridrishta aspect brings in the aspect of jnanam. Now, as it is described in Nyaya Shastra, which is the Shastra which refers to the process of knowledge, how to, the pramanas, how to infer, what is direct perception, etc., etc. Jnanam always has a Vishaya. So, which is so there is a Vishayi and a Vishaya. So the Vishaya is sort of what the knowledge is about, the object of knowledge, so to speak. So in that sense, we see interestingly that the term paridrishta in the previous sutra 2.50 brought in the aspect of jnanam, and here the sutra 2.51 brings in the aspect of Vishaya for that, the paridrishta aspect of the jnanam. So wherever there is jnanam, there is a Vishaya, and here there is the Bahya Vishaya, Abhyantara Vishaya, and so on, which is the object of the jnanam, which is occurring due to the examining or characterizing by means of Desha Kala Sankhya. Going beyond this characterizing, the object of this characterization, which is the Bahya Vishaya, which is specifically stated, and transcending that is being referred to here as Chaturthaha. And therefore, the wording Bahya Abhyantara Vishayakshepi Chaturthaha. So this is sort of a slightly deeper understanding of the sutra. Okay. So with this, we'll stop for today and recite the slokas on Guruji. And next time we'll continue with 2.51. Vaijñānikam pravaktritva āsaneshu kalavidam योगाभ्यासे च तत्त्वज्ञं वन्देऽहं सुन्दरं गुरुम् योगवृक्षो हि लोकेऽस्मिन् यत्प्रेरणेन वर्धितः योगाचार्यगुरो तुभ्यं सुन्दराय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Namaskar.